Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And UFC Fight Night Royval taking on Kape is here. And as always, we're here to break the entire thing down, starting off in the early prelims, heading to the main event. And I'm joined by my co-host, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
And we're going to start things off in the early prelim opener. The heavyweights are kicking it off. We got Marcus Buchecha taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu. And as always, I'm going to kick things off with Carlos. Let us know who you got in this big fella matchup.
I know that he struggled against Martin Buday in his debut, but I am going to take Buchecha in this one. And it has nothing to do with the fact that Nzechukwu was actually like taken down and subbed by Walker. That could happen to anybody. Walker's been doing it to all the heavyweights now. But I think Buday was, he's got that big barrel-chested body. He's very big for the weight class, obviously at heavyweight. And I just think he struggled to move around a body that big and somebody that strong that could, match him move for move on the ground and even on the feet. He's not very skilled on the feet, and I think Buday surprised him and was very much more technical than he was. And same thing, I feel Nzechukwu is probably going to be a lot more technical on the feet, but I do think that Buchecha will probably get easier takedowns because he's not going up against such a big body. Although Nzechukwu is not like a small guy, I don't think he's got that size and that, his legs aren't massive like Buday, his back isn't massive like Buday. And I think that Buchecha is going to be able to at least be as physical as he'd like to be. And he's not going to be surprised by the size of his opponent. So I think that if it stays on the feet, Nzechukwu all day, I think he's going to end up putting him out. But I think that Buchecha is going to get him up in the clinch. He's going to use that blast double. And hopefully he's been doing a lot of road work. And, I think he can pull this off. And I think if this goes to the ground, he's going to get the sub no matter what. So I'm going to take Buchecha. Obviously, I'm not so confident in it, but I'm going to take him in this one.
Yeah, give me the other side of the coin. I'm going to go with some dissension here and go with Kennedy Nzechukwu. And I got to say, I've never been high on the kid. I've never really been a fan of his skill set and what he brings to light heavyweight or heavyweight, if I'm being completely honest. But I think the difference maker here is the 6'5" frame. Obviously, like Carlos said, he's not as thick as Martin Buday is, but I think that tall, lanky frame is going to help him stay upright. I think Buchecha does a good job of being able to get fighters to the ground with blast doubles early in fights, but as the fight goes on, he takes a little bit of damage, and I think that the takedowns aren't going to be there for him. And I think that Kennedy Nzechukwu, unlike Martin Buday, carries a little bit more sting in his punches, and I think that he can find a finish here in probably the second round. But I agree with Carlos. If Buchecha can get this one to the ground at any point, he is live to clearly submit Kennedy Nzechukwu like we saw in that Walter Walker fight. And I agree with Carlos. Walter Walker's been doing that to everybody, so that's not necessarily a knock on Nzechukwu. But I just don't really see this fight playing out in the sense of Buchecha gets an easy takedown and is able to find a finish on the ground. I think he's going to struggle to get this fight to the ground, especially early. And I think that Kennedy carries a lot more power on the feet. I think that he knows, obviously, with his previous two victories that he's had against lower-level opponents in Chris Barnett and Lucas Brevsky, that he can find the kill shot if he needs it. And I think that Buchecha leaves enough openings on the feet with the striking. Obviously, it's not his main skill set for Kennedy to exploit, and I think he finds the knockout here. So early dissension, as we like here on the Ground and Pound podcast. But I will say, if Buchecha gets it to the ground, it's going to be all she wrote. We might see another leg lock victory for him, but give me the African Savage to get it done. And next up, one Carlos and I have definitely been looking forward to. We talked about this one off air. We've got Costa taking on Morgan Charriere. Carlos, who you got in this one, big dog?
I'm going to start with saying I think Costa's probably a better fighter. Like his ability to fight is probably better. He got more tools. He uses more of everything. But I'm going to go with Charriere because I think stand-up is probably going to be close to the same. I think they're going to match in skill because he doesn't set anything up. He doesn't set traps. He doesn't change angles and strike off of those. He just comes forward, and if he's quicker than you, then he gets off first. And if he's faster than you, he gets out of the way. on the ground, the reason he can get back up and defend some takedowns, I think, has to do with his athletic ability. And he's got a lot of power, a lot of strength, and very good balance. So I think that's going to be enough to get it done against Costa. I do like Costa. He's been on a good run as well. He's been getting some good wins, some good victories in there, and he's been looking good and looking better every time. But I think Charriere's just athleticism is going to do it. He does tend to get a little tired, but then again, if Costa's going to, I think he's going to come in with a kind of a wrestle-heavy game plan, trying to get it to the ground. But I think Charriere being able to get back up is going to start to burn some of that energy that Costa's got. Not that he tends to fade too badly. He just slows down, and so does Charriere. But I think that with the two of them both slowing down, getting tired, getting a little sweaty, Costa doesn't have any choice but to stand with them. And I think that's where Charriere is going to best him, is on the feet. He's going to throw straighter shots. They're going to come out quicker. And if he tries to get clinches, he's going to end up, releasing some elbows in the clinch and some knees. And I don't think Costa's going to be able to have a defense for that.
Yeah, I feel fairly confident in Morgan Charriere this week. The last pirate, I'm part of the crew and I'm part of the ship this week. I feel pretty good about him against Costa, and Costa's been on a nice run. But I think when you look at the opponents he's faced, his previous four opponents, you've got Erosa, you've got guys like Christian Rodriguez, Andre Fili. These are opponents where I think Costa is probably the better striker overall. They're going to look to maybe try to wrestle him. They leave openings for Costa to exploit on the feet as the more technical striker. He's got, good forward pressure. I would say his BJJ out of the two is probably better, but the difference here to me is that I think Morgan Charriere's technical kickboxing is going to be much better than Costa's, and I think his takedown defense is pretty much second to none. I don't see a way that Costa's going to be able to get this fight to the ground, and I think if this is a back and forth striking affair, Charriere's going to have all the advantages, all the tools that he needs. I think out of the two, he probably carries a little bit more power as well, and I just think with Costa that in order for him to be able to have success on the feet, he's going to have to hurt Charriere, and I just don't see a way that he does that. I think Charriere carries more power, he's more athletic. I think he can be a little bit brutish in there in terms of the build, in terms of the thickness through the shoulders, and I like him in this matchup. I'm not sure what the odds are going to be in this fight, but if Charriere is the underdog, I will like him in this fight. I definitely will be betting on him, but be interesting to see when the lines get put out there if Charriere is going to be the betting underdog. Little betting insight there, that might be the dog of the week. But yeah, I like Morgan Charriere to get this one done. I think he's more technical. I think he keeps this fight upright. And I think Costa's going to end up getting a loss and snapping that win streak that he's got. And next up, we have Giga Chikadze taking on Kevin Vallejos. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm very high on Vallejos, and I'm going to go with him. And I think that his style is going to pose a little bit of an issue with Chikadze, where he's got to close the distance. He's going to force Chikadze to probably have to box more than throw those kicks. And if that's the case, I believe that Vallejos is going to have the I think he's going to have the advantage. The other thing too is Giga's not very good on the ground. Okay, he can get back up in a scramble, but his scrambles aren't that great. And once he's down, he can be controlled. And Vallejos can actually take him down. And most of his opponents that we've seen so far, he hasn't been able to just control on the bottom. I do believe that he can take Giga down. I think he can control him. I think he can use some ground and pound and sap out some of that energy from him. And then back on the feet, Vallejos doesn't really get too tired, and he's probably going to end up just, steaming forward, throwing combinations, and I don't think he's going to get the finish. Giga's a tough guy. He's very wily in there, but I do think that Vallejos is going to put it on him on the feet, and I do feel that he can mix things up, bring it to the ground, and get him tired. So I'm going to take Vallejos for this one.
Yeah, I pretty much share the same sentiments here for you. I think if Vallejos decides to mix in some wrestling and he's got that forward pressure with his boxing, I think that's going to be a very, very good style to beat a guy like Giga Chikadze. There's no secret with Chikadze, obviously, the Giga kick. He's famous for his kicks, and that's his main weapon. And I think when you take that away, I think his hands are nowhere near on the level of most UFC 145ers. And I think that he struggles. If you stand there and have a technical kickboxing match with him, or he's the one coming forward and he can get his kicks going, I think that, you give him openings where he can hurt you. But I think the difference here is that with Vallejos is in most of his matchups, he's the shorter guy. He's got that stocky build, tight, high guard. He wings them hooks to the body and head. And he needs to be able to get on the inside. And I think that forward pressure and that style is going to be a very much ideal matchup for him against Giga, because that's how he needs to fight in most of his fights based on the size that he carries at 145. Not necessarily the taller, rangier guy in the matchup in the division. And I think that all he's going to do here is just pretty much implement that same strategy: get on the inside, land big hooks to the body, swing over the top, land big shots to the head with them hooks, and take away the kicks of Giga Chikadze. And I think when Giga's on the back foot, you see that he tends to fade, he tends to struggle moving backwards, and I agree with Carlos as well. If Vallejos wants to mix in some wrestling, that once you get Giga down, he's quite happy to accept bottom position and kind of play guard and just basically look for openings to be able to try to get back to his feet. I think Vallejos can win minutes on the ground and land some big shots on the feet. He just needs to be mindful of the kicks, make sure he has good forward pressure like I believe he will, and I think this would be a nice named opponent for him here to get his UFC run going. And next up, we have Melissa Croden taking on Luana Santos. Carlos, who you got in this matchup?
In this fight, I'm going to take Melissa Croden. I felt that in her first fight in the UFC, I thought she was a little bit uncomfortable. I thought it took her a while to feel relaxed. She was starting to find her range. She was, starting to get the flow into the fight and feel loose, get a little comfortable, and was able to stop Lisboa. But in the early round, she was a little hesitant and a little stiff. And I think that was a little bit of the UFC jitters. I think Croden's got good wrestling. She's got good grappling. She can thump as well. I think she carries more power in this fight. Luana Santos, she's got good judo. She's well versed in submissions. She poses the problem of finishing with a submission on the ground, but Croden's also very well versed. So she's not going to be like, as soon as I get you down, I'm going to get the finish. I think Croden, her wrestling is good enough to sweep, end up on top, and I think she can do a lot of damage in the ground and pound department as well that Santos just can't stop. So I'm going to take Croden because she's got more ways to win, and she can be a little creative with it because she carries a little bit more firepower than Santos.
Yeah, 2 for Croden here. She impressed me in her UFC debut. I was going to make her the dog of the week that week. Unfortunately, a lot of people saw what I saw in that matchup against Lisboa, and she flipped to the favorite pretty quickly, and rightfully so. I think the thing that really stands out to me with Croden is she's pretty physically dominant in there. She's always looking to bully her opponent. 5'9" at 135. Reasonably muscular build. And she's always looking to do damage. Like Carlos said, she's not one of these women that gets fights to the ground and is looking for heel hooks and laying and praying. She's trying to beat you up with ground and pound, something we like here on the channel. And I think, to me, realistically, that she could be much more physically imposing here against Luana Santos. I think if this comes down to a strictly striking match, I think Croden carries enough power, enough volume, enough cardio to be able to win this fight on the feet. My only real concern here is that she spends too much time in the clinch with Santos, who's obviously, as Carlos mentioned, a high-level judo practitioner. She gets, tripped, thrown, and ends up into, some sort of, whether it be side control or half guard and controlled on the ground for periods. That's the only way I really see Santos winning this fight, is being able to get this fight to the ground using her judo and then being able to gain some top control. But I think Croden's big enough. I think that she's got good enough wrestling, jiu-jitsu to be able to defend or at least be able to reverse position. And on the feet, I think that she should have all the success she needs in terms of doing damage. And even though Luana Santos is 3-1 inside the UFC, you look at her opponents, Tanara Lisboa, not necessarily even at the UFC level at this point. We've got Agapova, who has been cut herself, and Stephanie Edgar, who kind of had a nice little run early in her career against lower level opponents, but has kind of shown holes in her game. And I think with Croden, I agree with Carlos. I think that her UFC jitters probably got to her a little bit in that opening bout against Lisboa, but she ultimately kind of shined through as the fight went on. She got a little bit better, and showed a more well-rounded skill set. So I expect her to kind of improve from fight to fight here. And I think as well, at 34 years old, she knows that time isn't on her side. She needs to have some impressive performance, and I think she gets it done here against Luana Santos. And next up, we have Melsik Baghdasaryan taking on Joanderson Brito. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm just gonna say I do like Baghdasaryan, and like I said, sometimes he comes out, he looks like a villain in a movie. You know what I mean? He has that attitude. He looks like he's very brash, and he wants to get in there and mix it up. Unfortunately, a lot of his kryptonite in there is the fact that if you take him down and work a lot of your ground game on him, he doesn't really have too much of an answer for that. But he has been getting better with his takedown defense. The problem is somebody like Joanderson Brito, who he is pretty explosive, he's pretty quick. He can throw something hard at you. You got to be worried about it. Kicks and takedowns where he's going to be able to control Baghdasaryan. It's either Baghdasaryan is going to have to fight backwards, always constantly running, because you don't know when the hard shot's coming or if he's going to shoot and take you down. I think that if Brito mixes up his takedowns with the strikes, times it well enough, I think he can catch Baghdasaryan, and take him down and possibly control the round from there. If he gets a submission, he gets a submission. But Brito also wants to do some damage when you're on the ground as well. So he's gonna throw some elbows, he's gonna throw some hammer fists, and if the submission opens up, he's gonna take it. But he does want to do damage. He also wants to get the finish. So he's looking to finish by knockout or submission. So Baghdasaryan is going to have to be careful if he gets on the ground. But I do believe that just the fact that he's able to add that extra dimension and he's got the speed to make himself dangerous enough, I think that Brito's going to get it done. Although if this fight just stays on the feet, I think Baghdasaryan would get the best of him. But I'm going to take Joanderson Brito in this one.
Yeah, 2 for Brito here. I feel pretty confident in him. Baghdasaryan, they talked about in his previous fight that he went over to Dagestan to work on his wrestling. Obviously, the takedown defense was the issue. People know coming in that he's a very skilled kickboxer. He's very good on the feet, and he can knock people out. But they also know that if you take him down, smother him, you can submit him. And I think that's exactly what Joanderson Brito does here. I think he gets back in the win column after back-to-back losses to Pat Sabatini and William Gomez. And even in that William Gomez fight, that was a robbery. He was able to have that heavy forward pressure, which I expect to see in this fight. As long as it's not reckless pressure, kind of arrogant pressure here, Baghdasaryan can definitely put his lights out. Unless I agree with Carlos, if this was a back and forth kickboxing striking affair, I think Baghdasaryan will probably be the one to get the better of the exchanges. But Brito loves to be very physically dominant, very, kind of walk his opponents down with disregard. And I think that he comes in here, gets back in the win column, mixing in the grappling, takes his back, finds a submission. It's no secret. I think this is either going to be one way or the other. If Brito decides, for whatever reason, just to stand there and have a kickboxing match, I think it's definitely going to be the less likely path to victory here. I think that he knows that he needs to get the victory. I think he comes in here, wrestles, and gets the submission. But if this is a back-and-forth striking affair and you're betting on Brito, definitely going to be concerning, that's for sure. And next up, we have Sean Sharif taking on Stephen Asplund. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going to take Sharif in this one because, same thing. He can incorporate takedowns. He was trying to do that against Junior Tafa. He was able to get him down and control him for whatever round he did take him down in. And I think it was round 2 he was able to take him down. And the same thing will happen with Asplund in the past. Once he gets taken down, he's like a turtle. He can't get up. There was sometimes I think I saw like once or twice where he was able to sweep and get back to his feet, but that was against someone that was, I don't want to say fairly new to grappling, because I'm sure they've been doing it for a long time. They just looked very new where they let their body weight, like, extend to one side instead of keeping it pressed on their opponent, chest to chest pressure, like they allowed him to get back up. Now, once back on the feet, if Sharaf wants to be able to throw strike for strike with Asplund, that's a stupid thing to do because I do feel that Asplund probably carries the heavier artillery on the feet. Sharaf, it's not that. I mean, he's just wild. You know what I mean? And against Junior Tafa, it was short notice, so his cardio wasn't there. So I'm hoping that he does a little bit more road work, does a little bit more cardio conditioning for this fight. And I feel that if he mixes in his takedowns, once he gets one, I think this fight can most likely be over.
Yeah, man, sloppy heavyweight fight. Let's be honest. This belongs on an Apex card. And if you're enjoying the content here and you enjoy the man titties on the screen, hit that like and subscribe button here for your boys on the Ground and Pound podcast. As we know, the heavyweights can be a tricky one at times. And I do agree that Sharif comes in here with a wrestle heavy game plan. He could definitely have success. But I'm going to go with Asplund. I think this fight really, when you look at it, both guys have not fought the highest level of competition. Whereas when you look at Asplund, I think the level of competition is just that little bit better. Obviously, when you look over at the LFA matchup that he had against Denzel Freeman, at the time, Denzel Freeman, obviously LFL heavyweight champion, good wrestler. Obviously, we just saw him get his first victory inside the UFC. That's the only loss that Asplund has. And he was taken down and obviously submitted in that fight. But I just don't see Sharif being able to implement that strategy, taking him down repeatedly. I think Asplund keeps this one on the feet. Both guys have got ham hocks. They could obviously both land and both KO each other. This is heavyweight after all. But I trust the concrete nickname of Asplund here to be able to find the knockout on the feet with the hands. I think Sharif, he leaves openings, and I think Asplund takes advantage. But it's hard to be confident in either guy. I think if either guy, finds the chin of the other, it could be all she wrote. But I'm going to go with Asplund here to be able to find the knockout on the feet and defend the takedowns. And next up,
you had to comment on the titties.
You knew I had to comment on the titties, but I had to do it, guy. I had to do it. But next up, we have Frye taking on Guilherme Pat, also known as Kong as well. I don't know if anybody's doing their research out there. It's also under Guilherme Kong. But Carlos, Kong, Pat, who you got in this matchup?
I'm going to go with Guilherme Pat in this one. And we talked about it earlier. Frye, he's a big body. He's not out of shape. He's somewhat coordinated. So on the regional scene, he's fighting people that look like Asplund and Sharaf, and he's just dominating them. But those guys aren't coordinated either, and they're awkward, and they're overweight, and they can't get out of their own way. And Pat is not the best fighter. He doesn't look like he's been fighting for a long time. He's a big heavyweight. He's got coordination. Looks like he has a little bit of athleticism. So I think that's enough to get this done for him because Frye, in his last fight, he looked like someone that just started fighting about 2 months ago. He throws punches very awkwardly. He looks stiff. He's almost straight leg when he throws. He's got a lot of work to do, and I'm not saying he can't do it. I just don't think. I think he needs a lot more fights before he should be in the UFC. Maybe another year of fights, 4 fights or another 2 years of fights, just to look comfortable in the ring. And I think Guilherme looks comfortable in the ring, whether he's experienced or not. And I think that's enough to get it done. It's just his athleticism, and he's probably going to be a little bit more physical than Frye in this fight. So I think that's why I'm taking Pat. I think he's going to be just a little bit more coordinated to get it done. Both guys don't look super impressive with their skill and ability, but I think Pat's got enough power, enough strength to get it done.
Yeah, I'm going with Pat as well. I think Kong gets it done and beats his chest, and we see the victory here. I don't really get the whole narrative here of Frye being a favorite in this matchup. When you look at the tapology side of it, most people are seeing Frye win with a knockout landslide here. And I don't know what tape they're watching with Frye. Maybe Carlos and I have missed the boat here. I only was able to see his last fight against Justin Frazier. And in that fight, he got taken down twice by a guy that looked like a cab driver on the weekend, who looked completely out of shape. He got taken down twice, was able to get back to his feet and throw some pretty just raw, untechnical punches to be able to find the knockout. And when you look at Guilherme Kong or Guilherme Pat, the guy, like Carlos mentioned, he's physical specimen. He's very light on his feet, good athleticism. And even though he's not necessarily fought the higher level of competition, you can see the signs of him becoming a better fighter, or at least being the better athlete in this matchup here. It's pretty much all I have to say in this style fight. Give me game Pat here to get this one done. I think he finds the chin. I think he's probably a little bit more athletic. He's going to be quicker to the mark, and I don't really trust either guy's level of competition, but I do trust in the power and the athleticism here of Kong to get the knockout here. But be interested to see, maybe one guy shows up and we don't see what everyone else sees, but I'm interested to see what happens in this matchup. I think Guilherme Pat is going to be a big underdog, and I think he might pull off an upset here. And next up, we have Cesar Almeida taking on Cezary Oleksiejczuk. Carlos, are you going with the Polish power?
Actually, no. I'm going to go with Almeida in this one, and I think skill-wise, he's a counter fighter. He's looking for the openings, and I think Oleksiejczuk is going to give him the opening. Now, his movement on the feet is very fluid. Like, his boxing technique is very sharp, and that's going to give Almeida problems. And Almeida does have good takedown defense, so I'm not too worried about takedown. What I am worried about is if someone is a counter fighter and they've got a little bit more experience than you, or a lot more experience with you, the one thing you have to do to throw them off, to force them to make a mistake, is push the pace. But you got to do it in a smart way. And I think Oleksiejczuk could actually do that, is throw enough volume, stay busy enough to make Almeida, even throw a couple of feints to make Almeida bite on it or leave an opening, maybe a little overconfidence, and probably tag him and, do some damage. But I don't know, like, Almeida is very relaxed. He's very calm in there. He could, for someone that doesn't have a lot of grappling, he's been doing very well with takedown defense. And I don't see Oleksiejczuk being able to get it there. So I'm going to take Almeida in this one. I'm not confident in this either, because on the feet, Oleksiejczuk's boxing is so much more crisp than Almeida, and kickboxers, they have a hard time with defensive, with punches in the pocket. And that's where the opening is going to be. So I'm gonna take Almeida. I'm not too confident in it, but he has been doing good. I like this kid, Oleksiejczuk. I kind of want to see where he goes after this. But yeah, I'm taking Almeida.
Yeah, the younger brother of Mikhail Oleksiejczuk here, making his UFC debut, and a nice tough matchup for him to kick things off. He's the #1 ranked Polish middleweight, and he's pretty impressive. I like him. I'm actually going to pick him here. I've flip-flopped on this one all week, but I'm decided to pull the trigger on Oleksiejczuk here. I have been impressed with Almeida. I've been a big fan of him since he's been in the UFC. Obviously, a glory kickboxer. He's kind of known for his fights with Alex Pereira, and he's got a nice tight left hook as well. His defense in terms of the takedowns has been shown throughout the UFC. He's worked on it. He's done a good job of keeping fights upright, and he's been able to find the knockouts in previous fights. But the difference to me in this matchup here is obviously that the height and reach advantage that Oleksiejczuk possesses. He's got a nice straight left hand, which I really like. I think he sets that up beautifully. And I think on the feet, even though I do give the edge and obviously the pedigree here to Almeida, I think the difference maker is going to be that when you watch Oleksiejczuk's fights, when he does pressure forward, he sets up his takedowns beautifully. And I think with guys who Almeida have fought in the past, he knows the takedown's coming. He's prepared for it. These guys are coming in. They wrestle in all of their fights. He's just waiting for him to shoot, to dig an underhook and be able to get back to his feet. And I look at this fight and I say, well, Oleksiejczuk can have his way on the feet. He can have good forward pressure. He can mix it up. He's got good boxing himself. Fought in, I believe it's bare knuckle MMA as well. So the guy can take one to give one. He can definitely take a shot. He's got very nice front chokes as well. And if Almeida decides to rush the get-ups here, if he does decide to mix in some grappling, I said to Carlos, I think Oleksiejczuk is a very opportunistic grappler and can find the submission as well. A lot of experience in terms of the 8 fights that Almeida has in MMA compared to the 19 of Oleksiejczuk. And I think he puts that to good use here. I think the volume is on the side of Oleksiejczuk. I think he can frustrate Almeida by getting well-timed takedowns, which is what I noticed with him. Throw a couple of shots, get the defense of Almeida up, level change, get him down. Almeida fights back to his feet. And I think that we see a lot of that. I think that just him getting worried about that takedown, I think it's going to be all that he needs to be able to mix in some nice shots here on the feet. And give me Cesar Oleksiejczuk here to get this one done. But I will say, if this one's a back and forth striking affair with no wrestling, I do think that I give the Almeida the edge. But I like Oleksiejczuk to be able to mix it in and use his experience here. And next up, we have Jamey-Lyn Horth taking on Tereza Bleda. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going to take Bleda in this one. I think that, Jamey-Lyn Horth, if she can't bully you with her size, because she does cut a lot of weight she's a very big, 125, I think. And she's actually not even like that much of a bully. Like if you can strike a little bit, if you can move a little bit, she doesn't know how to cut the ring. She doesn't know how to like set anything up to get you in a clinch. But if you're willing to come forward, she's willing to come forward. She's gonna bully you because she's just naturally the bigger person. I don't think she's gonna have that kind of success against Bleda. I think she's gonna be able to get. I think on the feet, Tereza is going to be able to snap some long strikes on her because Horth just comes straight forward. She doesn't have any ability to strike with her. And I think she's going to have a hard time getting this to the ground. And in the clinch, Tereza is going to have a lot of success as well with those long limbs and knees on the inside. So I don't think that Horth is going to get this done. I'm going to go with Tereza Bleda to get this done.
I struggled on this one. This one's tough for me. I'm not a big fan of Jamey-Lyn Horth. Obviously, she likes to be physically imposing in there, get women up against the fence, beat them up in the clinch. 35 years old, not necessarily something that you really look for in terms of when you're making a pick. But you've also got the other side here where Tereza Bleda is coming off of a 2.5-year layoff, fight cancellation in her previous fight against Jamey-Lyn Horth, and we haven't seen her in a long time. So rescheduled bout here, and I wasn't able to find the reason for Tereza's long layoff, so that has me kind of concerned. But 24 years old, you have to think that if it's an injury, she's able to come back and kind of recover fully here, especially after that long layoff. Another concern I have here for Tereza is that when you see her previous fight with Natalia Silva, in that fight, she's quite happy to get into the clinch, push women up against the fence. She is going to be the taller girl in this matchup. So I just question whether she spends too much time in the clinch with somebody like Horth who likes that style of fight. I think if she keeps this fight out at range and kind of picks and prods, uses her speed, uses her kind of length and reach here, I think she can definitely have success. I just have question marks behind the layoff and her game plan coming into this fight. I hope she doesn't mix in too many kind of clinches and kind of mix in too many takedowns to give Horth the opportunity to clinch. I think if she kind of, just mixes in a couple of strikes here, long range weapons, kicks, jabs, I think frustrate Horth a little bit. I think she tends to slow down as well, whereas I give Tereza the cardio advantage here. But I just have my question marks behind the 2.5-year layoff. So give me Tereza Bleda here. I'm not necessarily that high on Jamey-Lyn Horth, but I do think that if Bled's, kind of mixes in, a lot of clinch situations here, I do think the Horth could definitely pull off the upset. And next up, we have Magny taking on Yaroslav Amosov. Carlos, making his UFC debut. Does he get it done?
It's tough, but I'm gonna go with Magny, and it's not because of the recent wave of guys coming in from PFL and Bellator that have been taking a loss. I think it's the fact that Amosov, he fights going backwards anyway, and Magny just wants to come forward, but Amosov doesn't offer anything that is going to keep Magny off of him. Like, he doesn't have, that blistering power. He doesn't have big speed. He might want to take Magny down. Magny wants to go down. Magny's gonna fight it and try to get on top. He's gonna look to, ground and pound. He's gonna look for submissions on Amosov. He kind of wants to be in the same place that Amosov is. And on the feet, I think that Magny's gonna be busier than Amosov because it's not like Amosov throws in combination. Like I said, he doesn't have big power. So I don't think there's anything he could do to stop Magny on the feet or slow him down. And on the ground, if Amosov just ends up on top, he's probably just going to be able to just control him and stay on top. Like he's not going to do any damage. He's not going to. I don't think he's got that much superior submission ability than Magny has. I think Magny's very technical on the ground. I think he's very smart, and I think just Magny's ability to be busy on the feet is going to be enough to get it done. I don't think he's going to get a finish. I don't think he's going to hurt him. I just think him going forward, pressing, volume is going to be enough on the judges to be like, you know what? I think Amosov was a little nervous. I don't think he wants to engage. I'm going to give the fight to Magny. So I'll take Neil Magny. And I was thinking about it too against Jason Jackson. I was like, Amosov fought the same way, just goes backwards, not even looking to counter, just looking to throw one shot at a time. And the pressure of Jason Jackson coming forward, along with his striking power, is that what wore down Amosov? Or was it just the pressure? Because Magny can offer that pressure, but he doesn't throw big shots like Jackson does. So does he have to throw something to soften him up? And if so, Magny will get him in the clinch and throw those little shots to the bodies, dig knees to the body, elbows up top. And in that case, Amosov is going to take him down and probably end up on top. So I don't know if the pressure and fighting in close is going to be a good idea for Magny, but I do know that if he throws some long strikes and pressures, he's probably going to look like he's getting the best of Amosov. I don't expect a finish, but I do think Magny can get it done.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, to be honest with you, this one's got greasy split decision written all over it. And Amosov just doesn't wow you with anything. You know, you look at the shiny record of 28-0 back when he was in Bellator. And when you look at, obviously, that one loss that he had to Jackson, it was that forward pressure and that pretty much that style of just moving back that doesn't bode well when you fight a guy like Neil Magny. Obviously, he's going to have the size, the frame here, the reach. And one thing we know about Neil Magny is that he is going to come forward. He's going to pepper you with the jab. He's going to mix in some clinch, whether that be clinch striking or whether that be just getting you in the clinch, looking for takedowns, mixing in the wrestling. And Amosov just doesn't wow you with anything. He fights behind a jab. He's not necessarily able to gain the respect of some of his opponents, but he fights smart. He looks to counter. I just question whether that's the style that beats a guy like Neil Magny. I'm going to pick Amosov. I think he's going to be able to get it done here. I do think that Neil Magny leaves his calf there to be chewed up, which is definitely a weapon for Amosov that he can use. I would just like to see him be a little bit more aggressive, be the one on the front foot here, back Magny up, mix in your own takedowns as well. I think that this, like I said, has got greasy split decision written all over it. I could see Amosov early, Neil Magny taking over late, and then ultimately we get a close sort of second or third round here, and we go to the judges' scorecards, and who knows at the apex. But give me Amosov here to get this one done, probably by split. But I wouldn't be surprised if Neil Magny pulls off the upset, just based on the fact that he's the one moving forward, looking to do damage. And he also went, I hate to say this, but he's also got that kind of Caitlin Chikagian thing going on where, he throws the jab and he's making the hup noise as well, which could also sell it to the judges when Amosov's moving backwards and not necessarily throwing any power shots back his way. But give me Amosov here to get this one done. But I got a bad feeling about this one. And that brings us to the co-main event here for UFC Fight Night. Kape taking on Royval. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we break down Gillian Robertson taking on Amanda Lemos. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going to take the Savage in this one. I'm going with Robertson. I just know that Lemos cannot extend on anything. She can't panic fight. And that's what she's going to do, because at some point in most of the fights where she's at least controlled by other higher level grapplers, it looks like she's kind of nervous to go to the ground with them. So what she does is she kind of throws strikes. There's no rhythm to it. She just lets it go and she overextends. And sometimes like, she could catch Robertson, she could hurt her because she does have that ability to do so, but she doesn't have the accuracy to do it. She just kind of swings a little wild, and when I say wild, it's just she throws it, but there's no real target to it. Like she wants to throw it to your head, she throws the punch, whether you're there or not. She's gonna throw it, and having that level of striking, um, and having a little bit of snap on your shots that as Lemos does, it doesn't help you because now you have to be high volume, and she's not high volume, and she does have good take defense when she's ready to use it, but to get in close with Robertson so often and not know how to keep the distance and swinging a Hail Mary shot. Robertson's a tough girl, and she's going to be able to get through that, and she's going to take her down, and she's going to control her and get the submission. And she's done that over and over again against some good level strikers. And she has been hit with shots. She has been tagged, but she comes forward and she gets through it. So I'm going to take Robertson. I don't want to say one-way traffic because, it's live before it hits the ground, but I do feel that inevitably it's going to hit the ground and she's going to get it done. So I'm going to go with Gillian Robertson in this one.
Yeah, I said to Carlos before we hit play here and set this one up for recording that I think Gillian Robertson has always kind of had a lot of haters, if I'm being honest. She's had 19 fights in the UFC, and she started off pretty young, pretty early, and I think people kind of disregarded her as a future title contender and someone climbing the ranks. But she's only 30 years old. I think she's in her prime now, and she's shown that in her last 4 fights. I definitely think that she's looked better previously, and she's been on a good run, and I think that's down to the fact that she's able to get fights to the ground. She's a girl that's going to look to do damage and not just kind of lay and pray or go for submissions. She's going to beat you up with elbows. She's going to get into mount. She's going to look to do damage, and that's going to set up the ability to strangle her opponent. And I like that here, especially against a woman like Amanda Lemos. Lemos can't defend a takedown. That's the narrative. That's what's pretty much gone on in most of her previous fights. If she overextends, she gets taken down. She carries power early. I think if Gillian is able to get this fight early to the ground in round 1, I think she's going to wear down Lemos. Lemos is going to start round 2 pretty much in the same scenario where she's going to be worried about the takedown. She's pretty much knows it's coming. And because of the fact that she's tired from being beaten up and, being in pretty much all of the dominated positions that Gillian Roberts is going to have her in, she's going to get tired, and that takedown's going to come easier in round 2, and ultimately Gillian's going to be able to find the finish on the ground. I do think that Gillian gets a lot of stick based off of her previous performances, her inability to get fights to the ground. I think she's shown improvements from fight to fight to be able to do that, and she's got an ideal opponent here that can't defend a takedown against pretty much anybody else. So I think, like Carlos said, I don't want to say one-way traffic. I am going to say one-way traffic. I think Robertson finds probably a submission or a ground and pound victory here in the 2nd or 3rd round, and I think that she continues to add names to her pedigree on a 5-fight win streak. And that brings us to the main event here. We've got Manel Kape taking on Brandon Royval. Carlos, who you got in this main event matchup?
I'm going to go with Starboy in this one because I think Kape is very fast. He takes punches very well. He takes strikes very well. He doesn't look rattled when he gets hit. He's got fast feet. He's got very fast hands. Defensively, he's very sharp. He doesn't throw feints very much, but what he does is he changes levels, with his legs. So it looks like he's going to shoot. And just that little level drop right there throws guys off if they're ready to come forward with the strike. So it keeps them at bay. And he's constantly switching stances. He's changing levels. He's got good cardio. I've never seen him get tired. I've seen him fight some wars, and I've never seen him be drained, never seen him be tired. And he can stop people late in the fight if he has to. He can throw in combination. They come out quick. Defensively, he's back. He either moves his feet or he moves his head. Doesn't really bring a high guard. His hands are low, so it looks like he can be hit. But someone like Royval, who's going to come forward, he's going to throw high volume, is kind of a bad matchup because Kape is fast, He likes to counter, and there's going to be an opening. And I'm not saying he's going to knock out Royval. I'm not saying it's impossible. But with the high volume, you're coming forward. He's going to be looking for takedowns. He's going to be looking to mix it up. Manel Kape, unless you're, was it Muhammad Mokaev? If you're coming forward, he does stuff takedowns very well. Mokaev is just one of those guys. He's a freak. He's going to take you down no matter if you know it's coming or not. Royval is not that kind of guy. He's not going to get Kape down. He's not going to keep him down once he's there if he gets a takedown. And I think on the feet, the way Royval throws, I think that leaves a lot of openings for Kape to land some damage. So I'm going to take Manel Kape. I think he's going to get it done.
Yeah, two for Kape here. I think this is a bad matchup for Royval. I think where Royval shines is he wants to be able to scramble with you. He wants to be able to win positions on the ground, and on the feet, he wants to be able to pressure you. But he does leave openings on the feet, which Kape can definitely exploit with his speed, with his more technical striking. And I think ultimately Royval does not have the wrestling to be able to get Kape to the ground. And we've seen with Manel Kape that he can defend takedowns very well. And even in that Muhammad Mokaev fight, that he did a good job defending a lot of those takedowns. So I just don't see a path to victory here for Brandon Royval. And as the slight underdog, I'm pretty sure Kape is going to be the dog here. No pun on Royval's nickname of Raw Dog, but I think that Manel Kape is going to be a very viable underdog here in this matchup, and I think that he's a bad stylistic matchup for Brandon Royval. If you go back and look at Brandon Royval's previous performances, Tatsuro Taira is a guy that wants to be able to mix in wrestling. He wants to get you to the ground, and that plays right into the hands of Brandon Royval. You look at that Brandon Moreno fight. I argued in that matchup that Brandon Moreno was not the Brandon Moreno that we're used to seeing. He was a guy who, he came into the style of fight where he just lost his title. He was kind of coming off of he just didn't look like the same Brandon Moreno that we'd seen in the past. I think Royval saw that and capitalized. He had good forward pressure in that fight, and I think that he leaves a lot of openings for a guy like Kape who has power that can sting you. I don't think that Brandon Moreno is necessarily a guy that's known for his, one-shot power. It's more a volume or capitalizing on a moment. I just think Kape can touch him whenever he wants, and I think he can keep the fight on the feet with his takedown defense. So give me Manel Kape here and a fairly confident underdog pick. And that's all we have time for here on the Ground and Pound podcast. Full card breakdown for UFC Royval taking on Kape. And as always, you got to hit that like and subscribe button. And before we wrap things up, Carlos, what do you want to say to the people?
Just going to reiterate again, even though you just heard it, if you like, please hit that like and subscribe. We enjoy doing this. And, I think that it's coming down to the wire. We got this. I think it's the last fight night of the year, and then you got to wait almost 2 months for the next UFC. And I'm already feeling it right now. I'm kind of wondering how am I going to fill that Saturday night void. We're looking forward to the fights. PFL luckily has got some fights coming up, so make sure you check that out. We'll be breaking down a lot of those as well. But hope you liked it. If you did, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
And we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace.